So Spec Ops: The Line turned 10 years old this year, and while I'm a month late to that party, I still wanted to discuss and celebrate this absolutely astonishing game. Spec Ops: The Line released June 26, 2011 for the Xbox 360, PS3, and Windows. This playthrough was captured on the PC version of the game. In Spec Ops: The Line, you play as Captain Martin Walker. Martin Walker leads two other men, Adams and Lugo, on a mission to Dubai to confirm the existence of survivors after the worst sandstorms in their history. These sandstorms have essentially wiped out a significant portion of the city's population and trapped the rest there. Colonel John Conrad and his 33rd Division offered to assist the survivors against Army orders. And so when things got out of hand, Conrad declared martial law, and he's essentially been ruling it like a dictator, committing multiple atrocities on the populace. And while this is happening, the CIA is also operating in Dubai to investigate these claims. The CIA are also there arming an insurgency to overthrow Conrad and his men. And this is where you, Captain Walker, come in. You've been given a task to investigate if there are any survivors left and then report back to your superiors. So skipping ahead just a few minutes, Walker and crew are ambushed by locals who believe they're part of the 33rd and fire on them. After killing these people, Walker then receives a distress call from members of Alpha Patrol, which are part of the 33rd. Walker then decides to send his men in to help them as opposed to calling back to base and confirming that there are survivors. So after helping Alpha Patrol, a dying soldier tells Walker that he needs to find someone else to help. And so this sort of sets the stage for Walker's mentality for the remainder of the game. Spec Ops: The Line is a series of supposed heroic actions strung together where Walker has felt the need to bend the requirements of his original mission. Walker legitimately believes what he's doing is good, but he doesn't know the entire situation. He's making rash decisions based on the limited information he has on the situation at hand. So for example, when you first arrive in the city, he claims that Conrad is a good man and he knew him back from his Afghanistan days. But Conrad is in fact the guy who took advantage of the city's poor situation and committed numerous crimes against the locals.
Well, if we're gonna sort this out, we need to find John Conrad.
How's that help? You just said the 33rd were rogue.
Conrad wouldn't abandon his duty. The 33rd may be hostile, but I guarantee the Colonel isn't part of it.
How can you be sure?
Because I know the man. Now get that open.
Not a problem.
There's another man you meet named Riggs, who's a CIA agent who claims he's leading a raid on the city's water supply to cripple the 33rd. You're willing to help Riggs and do anything to stop Conrad, who we now know has been hurting the locals. After succeeding, Riggs just ends up destroying all of the water anyway. His mission wasn't just to cripple the 33rd, but to wipe out the remaining population of Dubai and bury this entire mess so the United States didn't seem guilty of it. After all of this turmoil, Walker ends up letting Riggs die anyway, like that's some sort of redemption for what they've done. Walker has doomed so many people on his personal mission to do right that he hasn't always considered the alternative, walking away. This theme of false heroism and knowing when to stop plays throughout Spec Ops: The Line. The game employs various ways of communicating this with the player that I haven't really seen in a game since. You have to remember in 2012, every AAA shooter was modern or near future. Games like Call of Duty and Battlefield portrayed the US military as the good guys. We came, we saw, we conquered. No matter what the odds were, the US and its Western allies succeed and save the day. Spec Ops: The Line dials that back big time, but playing the game for the first time, you'd never know it. When the game kicks off, your squad jokes around with each other. They playfully make light of the situation.
Hey, Command wants us to look around, we look around.
I don't know. Sounds like a waste of 3 stone-cold, ruggedly handsome Delta operators such as ourselves.
However, as the game progresses, your squad seems more anxious, more annoyed with the situation and with Walker himself.
We just took out a tower full of American troops.
They didn't leave us any choice.
You didn't leave us any choice. What the fuck happened to us, man?
Nothing. We're fucking soldiers.
Oh, I see. My mistake.
In addition to this, your squad will look more run down as the game goes on. Your gear will look torn up. Your face is covered in dirt, oil, and blood. Walker's facial expressions really got to me. This one in particular stuck with me for the rest of the game. Just look at him. He looks tired, confused, and shocked. I read that the developers specifically made the game third person so we could have moments like this while playing, and it's very effective. The developers also decided to add dynamic loading screens, which was very popular with other military shooters like Call of Duty, which would regularly give give you gameplay tips and inspirational quotes from historical figures. Spec Ops: The Line begins like this, seeming innocent enough, but as time goes on, the loading screens become more and more depressing. Seeing Walker's face like this, combined with everything else I've talked about up until this point, really got to me. And in addition to this, the tooltips on the bottom of the screen become more aggravated and aggressive. This is my 4th playthrough of the game, and I had never seen some of these before. Some of these are just downright disturbing, and they address the player directly, like, this is all your fault, or to kill for yourself is murder, to kill for your government is heroic, to kill for entertainment is harmless. It's horrifying and uncomfortable, and that's what I love about Spec Ops: The Line. It not only breaks the fourth wall, but it does so effectively. Throughout the game, you're also given moral choices. For example, you may be asked to execute one of 2 people based on their past crimes. Each time I played through the game, I've picked something different just to see what the results were. To my amazement, you could completely avoid this scenario by just taking cover and attacking the overlooking snipers directly. In addition to this, there are points in the story where there's an illusion of choice, where one of your squad mates might object to something you're about to do. And unfortunately for you, you don't have a choice, and so you have to live with the consequences of the horrific war crime you've just committed. As a young adult in 2012, I'd see scenes like this and say, wow, that was so brutal, I want to see it again, that was badass. But as an almost 30-year-old man in 2022, I see something like this and I'm just horrified. It's terrible, it's hard to look at, and that's exactly the reaction the devs wanted. The game has a few different endings that still shock me to this day, and I won't spoil them for this video. I feel like I've spoiled enough. I'm 7 pages into this script and I still haven't really talked about the second-to-second gameplay. So Spec Ops: The Line is a standard third-person shooter. So you're able to carry 2 weapons, you have a range of military weaponry to play around with, and there's a pretty straightforward cover system. The weaponry all feels solid, there's a gore system, but it's not really over the top. You won't always rip someone's arm off or pop a head, but when you do, it feels that much more impactful and graphic. And seeing as you lead a squad, you're also able to give very basic orders like throwing stun grenades, healing, or attacking a specific enemy that you target. The gameplay was criticized years ago in initial reviews, and I do believe that it's the weakest part of the game. If you're familiar with Gears of War, Uncharted, or any other AAA cover shooter of the last decade or so, this will all feel very familiar to you. That's not to say it doesn't have its moments though. I love how you're able to shoot objects in the environment to take out your opponents, and this goes beyond just red barrels. Many of the buildings in Spec Ops have glass ceilings or walls, and so if you shoot these out, you will either drop the floor out for someone on the roof or fill the room with sand. It makes the combat feel a bit more engaging and exciting. Going one step further on that, there's a part where you're attacking the city's water supply. You're running from cover to cover across this colorful aquarium while loud rock music is blasting into your ears. The song starts off somewhat calm and layers are built on it as you descend to the bottom floor, killing whoever is in your way. The song finally climaxes with this loud, crunchy guitar riff that put a huge grin on my face as I cleared out the building. The music is unfortunately copyrighted, so I can't show you the unedited scene, but trust me when I say this, there is nothing, and I mean nothing, that I say or show you today that will fully immerse you into the game. The soundtrack for Spec Ops: The Line is perfect, and whoever picked it out deserves praise. It's a mix of licensed and original music spanning from different decades, but somehow it still all fits thematically together in a way that works. From 1960s pop to more modern hard rock. I don't know how they pulled it off, but they did. And speaking of the visuals, even though this game is now 10 years old, it still looks great on the PC. Sure, maybe there's a bit too much bloom, but for an Unreal Engine 3 game, I think it looks phenomenal. The art design and the contrast between the upscale buildings and nature reclaiming them is an underrated part of this game that also shouldn't be overlooked. Spec Ops: The Line also shipped with 2 other game modes that were heavily criticized by not only critics but by the game's developers themselves. 2K Games insisted that Jaeger include a multiplayer mode, and when they resisted, 2K Games decided to outsource development to another studio. The competitive multiplayer component involves your usual free-for-all, team deathmatch, etc. game types. There's also a cooperative mode that plays out like a horde mode in pretty much any other game on the market. I remember buying Spec Ops: The Line sometime shortly after release on the 360, and I don't remember the game's online component ever being populated. It's very bizarre to me that 2K Games would push this on Jaeger after they've created this very anti-war, anti-killing for entertainment product. They're promoting a multiplayer mode that directly contradicts what the main game is trying to portray. Seeing as you probably won't be touching this at all during your playthrough, I don't think it detracts from the game's overall message at all though. Unfortunately, those low player numbers do spell out something bad, and the game just didn't sell well. and we haven't seen a new Spec Ops game since. In a world where Call of Duty continues to make buckets full of cash, maybe the world just wasn't ready for Spec Ops. Or maybe Spec Ops The Line was released on the wrong type of media. Maybe this story will resonate more with movie watchers or novel readers. But for me, I applaud their effort in reaching an audience that isn't typically fed this type of story. And look on the bright side, since its release, the game has seen a resurgence in popularity, and I'm so glad that people are going back and discovering it for the first time. As I'm writing this script and reading it out loud for you all, I feel a bit overwhelmed by the quality of the content in this game. There are so many little details that I didn't cover in this video that I really want you to experience for yourself. While the game is only 4 hours long, it's very replayable with multiple choices, multiple endings, and little things that you won't see between playthroughs. Some will say the gameplay isn't all that great, and I would mostly be in agreement with them. But with that said, you need to stick with it if you do decide to try it for yourself. The game gets really good at the level titled The Gate, and it's a wild ride from there. For whatever reason, it seems that 2K are still charging $30 for this game, so my suggestion is to wait on a good sale or buy a used copy physically for a fraction of this. Whatever you decide to do, Spec Ops The Line is an incredible game that will have you coming back to it a decade later like it did for me. If it's been a while since you last played it, give it another shot even if you didn't like it. Your opinion might be different now that you're older, and you might see the game in a new light. And now, I turn it over to you. What do you think of Spec Ops The Line? Have you played it, and if you have, what did you think of it? I'd love to read your response in the comments. I read and try to reply to every comment posted. And now, let's roll the outro. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. I really do appreciate your support. For video recommendations this week, I'm going to recommend my Kill Switch review that helped kick off the modern wave of cover shooters we see today. I'm also going to go ahead and recommend my latest video on The Punisher, which is based on the Marvel character of the same name. As always, have a good one.